David Allen Grier, you had some big furry shoes to fill when you played the Cowardly Lion in The Wiz Live. Um, when you first got offered this role, I mean, The Wiz is such a huge favorite of both Broadway and the screen. It's been so often produced. Were you at all nervous about getting this role?
No, I just felt like right now at this point in my life, I'm ready. I've been acting like over 30 years. I'm ready. I'm ready. I don't know if you'd have asked me 15 years before, 10 years. I just know right now in this moment. What happened was I heard about The Wiz. The day that Kenny Leon was announced as director, I called him and left a message. I was like, man, I want to do this. But I wanted to be The Wiz because that's the only character I ever played the other times I was in The Wiz. I did a production at the La Jolla Playhouse in 2006, and I was The Wiz. So I figured, oh, this is what they'll want me to do. They cast a comedian, boom, boom. So I call him up. He's like, I just found out. Everybody's been calling me. My head is swimming. Give me a couple days. Let me suss this out. I don't know what they want to do. I was performing at Caroline's, and Kenny came to see me. So again, as soon as he jams me, as soon as he came in the dressing room, I jam him. I said, Kenny, dude, hook me up, man. So Kenny and his assistant, he looks at me. He says, let me ask you something. Is there any other part you see yourself as? And now every right-thinking actor goes, you're supposed to say, yes. I just want to be a part of this production. I don't care how big or small the role is. So I go, yes, I just want to be a part of this production. I don't care what role. And so he says, have you ever thought about The Lion? And I go, no. And it totally changed my head. It totally changed my head. I go in, I get the part. I get on the set. We're all rehearsing. I talk to Queen Latifah, Common, Neo, I think, and we all had the same story, which was the day we found out they were really doing this, we called them, the producers, the director, whatever, let me be in this. Please let me be in this. So that was pretty funny to hear. Yeah.
Well, everyone knows you from your TV and movie work, but you're also a big theater guy, and you got your start doing musical theater. You got a Tony nomination for the first, kind of like right out of Yale. You also were in Dreamgirls. So, I mean, this was really like a big return to your roots in a way.
Yeah, and most recently I just did Race. I don't want to say just right now. That was like 2009, right. 2000. And, I'd done Porgy and Bess. This was an in-between way to do something and also do something I'd never done before. I've never rehearsed for one performance professionally, just to do it one time in a live scenario, and that was it. So I didn't know how long a rehearsal we had. And when they told me it was like 2 months, I was really relieved. I didn't think we would have the luxury of that much time. So once I knew we had 2 months, I was really comfortable. And I said, well, look, I think that'll be enough time. I know that the next day I went in for a costume and prosthetics fitting because they immediately said, you have the part, we have to schedule this. So that was pretty intense.
Talk about making the role your own, because it's been, not just in The Wiz, but there's also The Wizard of Oz with Lar, and then of course the Broadway production of The Wiz and the movie from 1978. So how did you put your own personal spin on that character? How'd you get inside it?
Well, part of it was just how I grew up. I grew up watching The Wizard of Oz, and Bert Lahr, the lion, was always my favorite role. So that's kind of in my DNA. One of the first Broadway shows I ever saw was the stage production of The Wiz. So that performance by Ted Ross was imprinted on me. That was a soundtrack that we all listened to back then, and it was such a huge cultural and theatrical hit. It had a lot of influence on me as well. So I feel like at the end of all of it, it felt like kind of taking those two performances and melding them together. I know as an actor, I always wanted to, regardless if it's for children, young people, I wanted to create a complete three-dimensional character. So that's how I approached it, like to infuse and embody this as a complicated three-dimensional character. I didn't go, too crazy though. When I was telling people, the first week is like, man, they let me in the zoo. I'm sleeping.
I was going to say, yeah. How often did you get into the lion cage at the San Diego Zoo?
Neo and those guys, hey man, I'm crawling around on all fours. I'm eating meat. No, but it was really fun. It was really fun to explore this character. Most of it was the makeup, the prosthetics. We did one version of the show where it was just a group of actors in a room in our rehearsal clothes, but then putting all this stuff on, especially the three guys, the Scarecrow, me, the Lion, the Tin Man, we had to kind of start again once we got the prosthetics and everything on to make sure everything I was doing could be read by the audience, with all the stuff on.
Yeah, those costumes are incredible. I spoke with Neo not too long ago, and he said that you guys had to have like special tubes going through to keep you guys cool with all this heavy stuff.
Yeah, well, we did a photo shoot, which was probably the longest we were ever in these costumes and prosthetics, about 12 hours.
Oh my God.
Very early on. So after that day, I was like, I have to have a mixture. We had this mixture of like half Gatorade, half water, so you can really process this liquid and replace your electrolytes fast enough to last through the performance. And then they came up with this air conditioning like vest for Neo and I, and you just take us and they plugged us into the wall. And it was so great. I wish I had one today.
I wish I did too. Yeah,
it was like wearing an Ice Cube suit. It was awesome. Awesome.
So take us into the day of the performance. I mean, it's the Wiz live, and you've got one day to do it right for the cameras.
Well, for me personally, I just got into like a warrior head. I mean, I know I unplugged the email, I went offline. I really did not want to be distracted by any social media, chat groups, good, bad, or indifferent. I just wanted to go with this performance. We got in really early. The thing for all three of us is we start in street clothes with just basic makeup. Mm-hmm. And we had to run these changes, so the first day we did a prosthetics test was about almost 6 hours long, knowing that they had to get it down to, I think it was 42 minutes for me, because I'm the one to appear. But that's all we had, man. Once I got changed into the Lion, once we made that first change, I was pretty much good. The one thing I'll tell you is every run through leading up to the live performance, something would go wrong. Some sword baton would break, somebody would tumble and fall. I mean, just the average stuff that goes on when you do a play. So when we started the live broadcast, the first 10 minutes or so, I'm kind of defensive acting, looking around, well, something's going to fall, then we can move on, and nothing ever did. I mean, you guys got the best performance, the best performance. I didn't have to tell anyone, man, last night the set didn't collapse, so yeah, that was good. And then just as an actor, I just wanted to go with the moment, didn't want to manufacture anything emotionally, you know what I mean? Just kind of pull back and let it happen. And it was great. It was great. I came back because it takes about a half an hour to get all the makeup off of me. Mm-hmm. And I get back in my trailer and I finally turn on, Twitter and whatever. And I read like the first tweet I remember is like, the Wiz ends hate tweets. And I just went, oh man, you know, I really didn't expect the love, you know, the support, so many people, friends texting me, calling me, emailing me, some people I hadn't heard from in 10 or 12 years. I'm at home with my children. I'm at home with my husband. I'm at home with my girlfriends. And they were with us for the entire ride. And it just was just the best. It was so great. I felt really great.
Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance to watch it yet?
I think I watched it because we did a screening or something. I finally sat down and watched it. And it's like anything else. It's like watching the film of you on a roller coaster. And it's like, wow, it felt different when I was on it. I didn't know I was making that face. I was pretty proud of it, man. I was pretty proud of it. It was more fun to do it than to watch it. I know that much.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you a bit about your overall career, you know, because you've had such a long and interesting one, and you've done so many great projects. After you graduated from Yale, you went right into Broadway, and you got a Tony nomination for The First, and you starred in Dreamgirls. So what were those early days of theater like for you?
Well, you know, when I was a student at Yale, before that, Michigan, where I started acting, Broadway was the ultimate, man. That for me, you know, as an actor and the group of people I was hanging out with then, I wanted to be in that world. I wanted to be, you know, amongst those artists. So for this to happen in my first job, I remember when I was graduating from Yale on graduation day, as I'm waiting to receive my diploma, my mom's there, my dad, my grandmother, my sister, everybody. I said, dear God, please, just let me get one job. Just one job quickly so my parents can see that it's not all in vain, and I'll be good. I'll be good. My deal was, I'll wait 5 or 10 years, but just give me one morsel up top, then I can shut them up. And there was this part, you know, and I went, oh my God, I'm great, you know? And that's how it was. I mean, and then it was like, you know, it was a prayer. It was like, well, just let us make it to Broadway. Because, you know, a lot can happen. Just make just one night. If I can make it to opening night, it doesn't have to run 2 years. You know, you make it to opening night, and then, of course, I get greedy. Just let it run 2 years, you know? I think we ran just over 3 weeks, you know? And I'll tell you a quick story. I'm waiting to present Philip Boykin with the Theater World Award. And I start talking about The First. And, you know, I realized The First only ran 3.5 weeks. But in my life, in my memory, it is huge. It is huge. It felt like it ran 3 months. I mean, all the preparation, all the work. And I went, wow, looking back on it, just 3.5 weeks, but it was incredible. Yeah, I loved it.
Mm-hmm. So then talk about making the transition into movies, because you reprised your role from a soldier's play in the film. You also were in Streamers, another adaptation of a play that was directed by Robert Altman. So what were those experiences? You were working for Norman Jewison on film and Robert Altman. So, I mean, working with those kind of seasoned vets, what was that experience like?
Well, I think I did Streamers first. And Robert Altman, he was just the best. I mean, he demystified the whole process. One of his rituals, he would make drinks, snacks at the end of each filming day, invite the whole crew and the cast to watch dailies. So that's how it started. It wasn't a secret process that was hidden away. Some directors don't want their cast to watch it. I mean, he was very open about it. And we weren't forced, but it really taught me a lot. And you learn a lot watching yourself. I don't watch myself now, but I did learn a lot. And he made that process easy, because before I'd gotten that role, it was a mystery. I mean, I've done theatrical acting, I've done acting for television. There must be a different process, must be a different way to do film acting. And he's just like, chill out, relax, talk. Do your lines. So that was really great. It was really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so then
I
after,
just wanted to say one other thing.
oh yeah,
Is the first couple of days, I had my script, so I had memorized my whole character all the way throughout, and I learned immediately. I was like, oh my God, nobody knows their lines here. Meaning the actors just know the line to the scene. They don't know what comes next. And by the third week, I was like, oh, fine, we'll just do the same. So I was totally doing. But go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna say, then moving into a Soldier's Story, which was a role that you had originated on stage, and you know, what was that transition like to?
That was great. I mean, having the knowledge of doing the production, I played CJ Memphis on stage, but I'd worked with Denzel, and I think Sam Jackson's role was cut from the film. But I'd worked with Adolph Caesar for months, you know, on stage, so I was really comfortable with the material, even though I was doing this different role. It was really interesting. I mean, on that project in particular, I remember the vibe around it as being a very special project. We were told that this is very important, you know, for African American people, actors, etc. You know, don't screw up. But it was good. I mean, I'm all for that. A competitive or atmosphere, but it was good, not in a bad way, and stepping up, being challenged to step up to this material and this occasion and this opportunity. I mean, for me, basically, it's let me learn my lines, let's get on set and work. I mean, Norman Jewison was a different kind of director. I mean, we were not invited to watch dailies. You know, there weren't like a bar set up and, you know, woo, everybody partying and stuff. It was a different environment, but that was cool too. Yeah, it was good.
Mm-hmm. And then you worked for a few years after that, and then you got your role on In Living Color, yes. Which was where I first was introduced to you. To talk about, I mean, that show was so groundbreaking and so funny, and it launched so many different careers, not just yours, but all of the Wayans brothers and Jim Carrey.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx, that's right. Yeah, Jamie Foxx. And Jennifer Lopez was on there too. She was one of the, yeah, I mean, so many people came from that show. So, I mean, what were those early days of doing that like?
I know that Keenan always, this was like the El Dorado, like the city of gold. Everybody, every Black actor, especially Black comedian, that was given an opportunity, meaning, you know, you did your HBO special or whatever at the time, you were spotted, you're usually offered the same thing. Do you want to do a TV show? Do you want to do this film? Do you have a script? Well, this was one of these projects where everybody talked about it. Eddie Murphy talked about it, doing a quote unquote Black Saturday Night Live. That kind of sketch show, which just wasn't on the air. So same deal, you know, Keenan said this is what he wanted to do. I think I did I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. With, right. So he knew I was funny. And so we did the pilot in '89. It was an hour long. And it sat around for almost a year before we were picked up. I just didn't think they would let us do it because it was so outrageous and so boundary pushing. We knew we were out there. I just didn't think a network would let us do it. There was no FX, there was AMC, there was none of that. You know, it was just the major networks really doing these types of shows. So when we finally got picked up, I would go and do jobs. Like I think I did this guest spot on Elf. And when I would go and do these jobs, the crew, the director, the producers, they all saw this our pilot of In Living Color. It started circulating on the underground. And at a certain point, we got reviewed in Vanity Fair magazine before we were picked up. So at that point, we finally got this pickup and it was off and running. I mean, I don't think anyone looked back, especially that first season. We acted, we wrote, we created, I know for me, it was like we were on life support. Like they said, look, you got 6 months to live, tell every joke you know. And that's how we did it. It was really amazing to be on, after we finally premiered, to be on that cool show. I always wanted to be on that cool film, that cool show. I remember I went with friends to visit the set of The Color Purple. You know, I hadn't gotten it, my friend hadn't gotten in it, and there was this woman. Who is that woman over there? Oh, her name's Oprah. Oprah who? What a funny name. Oprah Winfrey. Oh, well, good luck. Whatever happened to her. You know what I mean? I wish I was in that cast, man. Hanging out with friends who had small parts in a trailer going, oh, man, I wish I were you. I think it was when they filmed the juke joint scene in The Color Purple. It was really exciting. And this was the first time where I really felt that I was on that show. You know what I mean? On that show. I'd had a little bites before, but it was great to come into the green room and everyone is there, you know, famous people. It was really cool. But I didn't ever feel, I didn't really know how popular it was. I mean, the only time, because we would do our work and go home, at least for me. I remember I went to visit Chris Rock and he was on Saturday Night Live. And they treated me like I was famous. I mean, you know, there were limousines and stuff, and I was like, it was so nice to me, you know. And you know, in LA, it was kind of like a shop town. We would meet, maybe and have late coffee or Thai food. We'd go home. But that was really when I really felt it in New York. Outside of Los Angeles or walking around, it was great. I mean, I love it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then from there you got all these different roles in television and film. I know everyone in my generation remembers you from Jumanji.
Yeah. What's funny about Jumanji is it took like 3 hours when I was the old Carl, because they had to put like highlights gray in my hair and gray my mustache, essentially to make me look how I naturally look now. So many years later. But again, I didn't know Jumanji would be this big, huge worldwide hit. I thought, okay, I'll do this thing, you know, Robin Williams. And I went back and I looked and I saw how much money it made. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that it was going to be that huge hit. But to work with Bonnie Hunt and Robin Williams, it was awesome. You know, Kirsten Dunst, she was a little kid then. Yeah, we remained friends for a long time. Yeah.
And then you worked with Bonnie Hunt again on another show, didn't you? It was Life with Bonnie, is that? Yeah.
Yeah. We met on Jumanji when I got on the plane to fly to Vancouver. She was sitting in front of me, and she just popped her head over the seat. And it was like we began mid-sentence in a conversation that had been going on for years. You know what I mean? I go, who is this woman? Who is this person? And it was just immediate, you know, fast friends, immediate connection. She's one of the funniest people, smartest, really great times. We spent a lot of off time talking and hanging out. So it was really great.
Mm-hmm. Talk about coming back to the stage, because you were in, as you mentioned, you were in the David Mamet play Race, which was a fantastic play. You got another Tony nomination for that. And then you were in Porgy and Bess, which got you another Tony nomination.
Yeah.
And I think a Grammy nomination too, is that right? Yeah. So talk about making that return to the stage.
Okay, well, with Race, I had read about Race. Nobody had a script. David Mamet didn't really read people. I was going through a divorce. I'd just been voted off of Dancing with the Stars. And the Chocolate News was canceled. So I call it my Alan Thicke moment. You know, so I started emailing my manager. I said, can you get me a copy of this script for Race? I really wanted to read it. And I finally got a copy. I read it. And this role, I knew immediately, I said, if I could read for this, I think I can get this role. It wasn't the person that I was, but it was a person that I know, if that makes sense. It is a person that I was subjected to, that I had been privy to, that I had knowledge of. That's what it felt like, this character. There's so many times as an actor, you read roles. This is what I was telling you earlier about The Lion, where you read roles that you know you can play if. There are very few, you look at that role and it's like a pair of shoes or a suit that is tailor-made. You say, bam, I know this person right now, or I know this character right now. That's how it felt. So I finally came in to read for Mamet. I read for him privately, just me and him in his office out here, and I didn't hear anything. So I started calling my manager again. I said, look, I'll go back in. Just tell him I'll go back in. They were like, oh, no, that's bad. Tactics, whatever. I said, I don't care. Send me back in. They were like, please don't go, David, please. I was like, no, I'll go. So I finally go back in. I'm ready to read. I have my little scene. And David finally, he stops me and he says, look, you have the part. I wanted to hire you the first day, but you're the only person I ever heard read this part. So I knew I had to at least hear other actors read it. And he told me that, and I went out into my car and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was so happy. Mm-hmm. So happy. I emailed every ex-girlfriend. Hey, how are you? I know you're married with kids. By the way, I'm in a David Mamet show on Broadway. Take care. I'll see you later. I was so anxious to tell every person, that saw me play like the grape in the Fruit of the Loom commercials I did before I left. All those bad acting jobs I was finding, like, this is it. Yeah. So I relished it, man. I just ate that whole thing up. I feasted on that experience. It was awesome watching and getting to work with James Spader and Kerry, who I knew, Kerry Washington, and Richard Thomas. It was the opposite from Porgy and Bess because there were like 4 of us. And that's when I started blogging. I would do a food blog, and James, I would cook all these dishes and I'd bring them in, and he was a harsh critic. He was hard. But he loved eating my food, so we did a lot of hanging out. I kept cooking in Porgy and Bess, but they're like 36 people, so people would always get jealous. Philip Boykin, who played Crown, would take the food, and I thought he was handing it out, and I found out months later that he told everyone, no, it's mine, and he always took it. Yeah, it was great, man. It was just a great experience, and then to be nominated for a role, that was one thing in my resume. I always wanted to do a straight play on Broadway. Mm-hmm. And then, your dream list, a straight new play. A new play is so much different than doing a revival or something people have knowledge of. We've probably seen it in some way or another, because nobody's spoken this, nobody's acted in it, nobody's done this character, so you're really forging new ground. And there it was. And to get a Tony nomination was just icing on the cake. So to go into Porgy and Bess from that was the total opposite. Porgy and Bess, everyone has either seen it or thinks they saw it, because the music parts of that story are peppered throughout our culture. So it was the very opposite from race. People would come in and everybody had some knowledge, ownership, and that was a part of the whole controversy doing it. But Audra McDonald was the reason I wanted to do Porgy and Bess. Mm-hmm. It was the only time in my career where it was offered in a way that I could participate in it. And at a time when I had the nerve to even go for it. I mean, the first day of music rehearsal in Porgy and Bess, I'm surrounded by professional opera singers. And I remember at one point, toward the end of the day, Diane Paulus came and put her arms on my shoulders and said, David, are you going to stay with us? She said she thought I was going to run out of the room because it was so intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, but it was, again, an amazing experience. What people came. I mean, I met a 95-year-old woman who is in a production of Porgy and Bess, which was great.
Wow.
I think, I know I'm on the air. Jesus, this opera singer who is a huge diva. Help me out. Jessie Norman.
Yes, yeah.
Jessie Norman came. She must have seen Porgy and Bess 6 or 7 times. I mean, she would come over and over and over. And the first 2 times we were like going, does she like it or does she hate it? And then finally, someone who knew Jessie said, no, she likes it, because why would she keep coming back? And I was like, well, maybe to see if it's as bad as she thought it was going to be. No, over and over, and was there backstage. She would always come backstage. It was just amazing. That music, come on, man. It was awesome. It was great. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you're back on television again with the Carmichael Show, which is doing really well, and it's very funny. So, I mean, what's that been like? How did you get involved with that?
Well, I knew Gerard. He and I met, and I think it was 2010 in the Montreal Comedy Festival up there. I liked him immediately. I loved his intelligence, his point of view. He was one of those dudes, like, if you're describing a jazz musician, he was a different cat. You know, he wore his gait, the way he carried himself, and the way he presented himself on stage, his ideas. He was just unique, you know. So we performed together on a couple of stages in Montreal and around LA. So we knew each other, you know. I heard he was doing a show, and I immediately read the script, and I really loved Gerard. I said, yeah, I want to do this. Now, when I came to the audition, Loretta Devine was coming out of the building. And Loretta and I were in Dreamgirls together on Broadway. We'd known each other for years. Yeah. Dreamgirls was, like, I think my 2nd or 3rd professional job. She and I have worked on and off together our whole careers. So I really love Loretta. And I was like, what's it like in there? And Loretta goes, oh, they don't like you, David. You know, and I was like, you get the part. She goes, honey, I don't know. So, you know, I went and I read, and they kept wanting me to come back. And I kept asking, trying to find out who was the wife. And finally, I think it was the last, I only went in a couple of times, but, you know, with television, things move so fast that they had to make a decision. You know what I mean? It was a day or two, and I finally got to read with Loretta, and it all worked out. I mean, one of the things I really enjoy working with her is our familiarity. You don't have to manufacture it. We just are, you know, and that's really, and I also feel really safe and protected with her. Like, whatever I toss her, I know she's going to go and work with and toss that ball back to me. Gerard, having created, having produced, started my own shows in various degrees, I know how much pressure Gerard was under. And the one thing I really admired and appreciated about him is that he handled his position and responsibility with such grace. I really don't ever remember a day when he came in like I would have done, which is like, we're fucked, we gotta go, oh my God. You know, no, Gerard was always cool and calm. And I'm like, wow, you know, this is great, because he set that tone. So we could all just do our work. So it's great. Just technically doing a multi-camera show. This is very much, I would call it a reinvented throwback. You know, using this multi-camera thing, and there was very specific ideas and techniques that Gerard wanted to experiment with and do, and it's just been great. I mean, to have this platform and be able to act and be surrounded by such a talented group of writers. I know I was thinking, I spent a lot of my career trying to get comfortable. You know, if you wrote this, if you had a different director and this, I don't really worry about that. I feel really taken care of. I don't think I've had to ever have that conversation with the producers or the writers where, you know, my character wouldn't say that. Joe would never wear patent leather men's sandals. You know, I never had to go through that with them because we're all on the same page, which is a relief and a joy, and it just makes my job easier.
Mm-hmm. Well, David, thank you so much, and congratulations on all your work. And it was a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, and I apologize. I know I probably didn't answer one question, except for the last one was actually the question you asked.
No. No, you answered every question perfectly.
Okay, man. Well, take care. It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you as well. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.